So I believe that the hour we all had was put to good things for conversations and new partnerships, I'm sure. Ukraine's EU membership is not only about reforms inside the country, it's about whether our neighbors actually want us beside them. And honestly, not all of them do yet. Some are afraid, some don't understand what it means for them. So, how to change that picture? That's what our second panel discussion is about. EU accession of Ukraine, how to turn neighbors from very skeptics to advocates. And our speakers, Mariana Prysyazhnyuk, analyst at the Democratic Initiatives Foundation, Ukraine, Ábel Ravasz, Emeritus President at Mathias Bell Institute, Slovakia, Csilla Fedinec, Senior Research Fellow, Center for Social Sciences, Hungary, Doctors Stefan Hofmann, Head of the Romania Office, Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, Oana Popescu Zamfir, Director at GlobalFocus Center, Romania, Moderator, Dmytro Tuzhanskyi, Head of the Patronage Service Unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, and our commentators, Ondras Ravasz, Senior Research Fellow at the DGAP, Hungary, and Balázs Jarabik, founder of Minority Report Consulting, Slovakia. So please, colleagues, start.
Доброго дня ще раз всім. Hello to everyone. We are coming back from the lunch. I expected less people than thank you. It's a very, very nice and good sign and signal that we actually keep you and kept you with us and people are coming, which is very, very good. So we will continue. This will be the episode number 2. So everybody who is watching Netflix, so yeah, this is the mood. We will jump between languages, so please keep your airheads with you. It will be Ukrainian and English. I will use both as well. Just to remind that at least me, I represent here only my thoughts and opinions, and especially as a moderator, my role is to provoke. That's why, bear with me as well. Thank you, Rosanna, for introduction of the panel and our brilliant speakers. Why it is so episode number 2? Because we had the first one, and it's not just a panel, but during the first panel, we discussed in depth, I think, a very situation where we are with our neighbors. Maybe not with everybody. We had no Polish representative, but we mentioned Poland. Episode 2, it's about not where we are right now. So I'm not going to replay once again the same topic, but it's rather about what we should do. So this is the topic of this panel, the motif of this. And as a kind of an intro, and then I will for sure ask questions. It is important to understand that here we are not going to discuss clusters, benchmarks, negotiations, or the type of them within the Ukraine's EU accession, which is also important. But we will discuss a part of these negotiations which is a tricky one. I explain you why. This is exactly bilateral level of the negotiations. There is so-called trap of bilateralization of the accession, which we all want to, I think, avoid and hope it's possible. But at the same time, to avoid this bilateralization of Ukraine accession to the EU, we need to not to ignore the exactly bilateral and regional context. And this is exactly what we are going to discuss. But being provocative, as I promised, I want very in a blitz manner ask you, and please answer in a blitz manner if possible. Very simple question. When you see Ukraine in the EU as a full-fledged member, your forecast or wish or dream, whatever, but please name me the year. Ábel, starting from you. Wait a second, and it will turn.
Is it on? Yeah. Hi. So, you know, I had the commentary at the end of the last panel that I don't like the big ones. And then you come in with like, you know, magic question. I'm not sure. And you also put two different questions into the package of one, right? What would I want to see and what do I think will happen, right?
Give me two answers.
Yeah, I hope as soon as possible, right? So if I look at it from strictly a Slovakia perspective, Ukraine is our last land border, which is not Schengenized, which means that at that point we will reach like full coverage of EU borders. Seemingly that would be a very, very strong interest of Slovakia. So regardless of any morality issues, I mean, positively, I would morally support and so on, but also from like a self-serving interest of Slovakia, it would be great to have it as soon as possible. When you talk about realistically, I think, you know, it's the end of the war and freezing of the war, something like that, plus a period of, I guess, 5 years is realistic, but I'm not a diplomat. But I think it's happening, and I think there's momentum behind this. And we did talk in the break that the current setup of countries bordering Ukraine from the west, the political setup there is just very positive. It's the most positive thing since the beginning of the war. If you look at the chain of countries, I don't think there is a blockade happening. I should have also said that I'm representing my own views in this panel at this point. Yeah.
Mariana? Just a few seconds and it will go. Oh, no?
Distinguished colleagues, Dmytro, thank you for this provocative question. It is indeed. But let me answer on this from the retrospective point. For me, it seems like integration of Ukraine requires geopolitical mobilization in Europe. And in this regard, it is very important 2007 year when Romania and Bulgaria accessed European Union. And why it is so? Because geopolitical matter dominated back then. And the European Union has already elaborated mechanism to help countries which enters into the Union with unfinished reforms and some problems which these two neighboring countries faced back then to overcome and to fulfill all requirements. And I believe this experience is very important for us if we understand realistically the state of all these processes in Ukraine, including all problems, all reforms that can't be completed timely because of war and because of different political interferences that definitely exist. And we need to ask to use this mechanism for us as well and learn from Romania and Bulgaria how to implement it.
Good, great. Stefan.
Okay, thank you.
So
well,
imagine you as a influential German bureaucrat.
Well, but first of all, everything I say is in my own name and not representing. We have two halves of the brain, and they found out that these two halves have two wishes at the same time, which not always come together. So there is one half of my brain which would say tomorrow, you wanted to be short, and the other would say, well, let's take our time, that everything is fine. As a good German, you know, we believe in processes and stuff. But there is one urgent matter. That means we need the capacity of Ukraine to defend Europe at this moment. So the time is running out, and the next point is everything we thought about accession to European Union is correct, is right, because otherwise we might bomb our own structures, which could not be, because otherwise, if we stress cohesion of European Union, which is already stressed, it will be difficult. But maybe there is something in between and a way how to think to be Ukraine part of European Union without being some kind of bombshell within our structures. But I lack fantasy to say how it is, but this is my wishful thinking.
Thank you. Csilla, твоє передбачення, це як печиво.
Csilla, what will be your prediction? I'll give a brief answer. I do not want to name any fixed date because, well, the common people should have some patience, and then when the date comes, we announce the next one. Ukraine has been moving towards the European Union for 35 years, and accession to the EU to a big extent will depend on the military capacity and power Ukraine will have after the end of this war. My personal opinion is we have been in Europe for 1,000 years. That's great.
You missed that part, but anyway, it was very optimistic that Ukraine is already in the EU more than 1,000 years, but in another modification.
So then maybe we can skip me altogether.
No.
Cold water. And that.
No, we need your prediction.
So you know I love you, but no, but this is wrong.
Okay.
So no.
This is a provocation.
I mean, approaching it from the point of view of a date is wrong. And the reason for that is that the EU that has launched the invitation to Ukraine and that Ukraine has applied to doesn't even exist anymore. The EU has changed in these few years from Russia's attack on Ukraine more than it has changed in decades. I mean, I know that we're all frustrated with the speed at which this is going. I know that we all discovered that we have this huge threatening country on our borders that could launch a threat, and the assessments are that the moment the war in Ukraine is over, Russia needs anywhere between 6 months to 2 years to be in a position to launch an attack against a NATO state. So obviously this is hugely frustrating for all of us who are discovering how vulnerable we are. And we would like to fix this at lightning speed, but we cannot. The same way we cannot, I think, project an end that has a clear date on it to Ukraine's accession. From the very beginning, the Copenhagen criteria were 3 that had to do with the country's capacity and achievements in terms of reforms, and the 4th that had to do with the EU's capacity to absorb the respective country. Ukraine is by far the toughest challenge until now because no country of its size has ever applied to use the enlargement policy of the European Union. This doesn't mean, I mean, this is not something, because I know how this can be received. This can be felt as rejection, if you want. So the EU isn't doing enough to get Ukraine in. No, this is a joint challenge. On a conceptual level, politically, in terms of our interests, I believe leaving all sort of crazy political forces in Europe aside, everybody realizes how important it is to have Ukraine in. Everybody wants it in. In terms of how we can do this, we don't know how to adjust to this new geopolitical reality. Just the same way that Ukraine, I don't think if you have an honest process inside the country
assuming there's no war suddenly, if you think how in the world you could possibly do all the reforms, considering that you also have democratic politics, that you also need to build consensus, that you also need to implement the reforms and you need to take society with you and have them kind of co-create this, I don't think you can honestly answer how many years it would take you to do that. So under the best of circumstances, the answer is we don't know. The only answer that I think we have is this needs to be a joint effort. If somebody, and if this rhetoric continues at European level, both Ukrainian and EU, to project dates to say 2027, 2030 or whatever, this is going to create frustration. It's going to create expectations. We're not going to be able to meet those expectations. Who knows? I mean, maybe we will. Thank God. I mean, I hope it happens like that. But we see how fast the world is changing. This is not a world that facilitates predictability. So I think it would create false expectations. It will create frustration. The EU will feel Ukraine is being unrealistic and it wants stuff that it cannot deliver. And Ukraine will think the EU just doesn't really want to deliver. And I believe neither is true. So I think right now what we need to focus on, both of us, is this is complicated. It's very complicated. It requires changing the EU, which is fine. The EU needs to change its cohesion policy anyway. It needs to change its common agricultural policy anyway, the main obstacles to having Ukraine in. But we need to do this together, cooperatively, as difficult and frustrating as it may be, and only then can we get the answers together.
Okay, so you want to add or challenge? Okay, let's go.
Just very quickly, actually I agree with whatever has been said, especially by Oana at the end. But I just wanted to point out the second constraint, because I mean, many of us were talking about, you know, so how we should be patient, and I mean, you should be patient. We also be patient. We should also be careful. At the same time, I understand the importance of political momentum, and if we miss that train, that is never going to come back to the station, or it will be much harder to do it. So you can actually be too careful. Which is not what you were saying, either of you. I just wanted to say that too fast is obviously not very good, but too slow is just terminational as well.
Great, Stefan. About the train, yes?
Yes, well, I would like to underline what both of you said, Oana, because finally, what keeps European Union together is trust. So if you make promises, by appeasing or perhaps by wishful thinking, and we cannot hold them, we will destroy more than we build up. So it's very important to keep total transparency of the process and even name all the arguments which are pro and contra, playing it in a transparent manner to say, well, we would like to have you in there. What we need to have you in there is a different thing, and maybe there is something we can negotiate to have an intermediate solution. But otherwise, just what Oana said, if you say, wow, there is a moment, and I think we caused some level of deception already. Well, I remember the discussion with Turkey, who wanted to be or not or something, and so now they think in another way, and the same happens with part of the Balkans as well. So some people say, ready, now get them in. And so transparency is the first and the most important to build trust and to rebuild trust, because trust, what you said about, we said about bilateralism, which happens, it's some kind of distrust. There is no common vision, and we need to get back to a common vision, a positive one, not only a negative one towards Russia.
Great, thank you very much. So we have very realistic, I think, and very honest answers to my provocative question. So it's kind of wake up after the lunch. Oh, more people. This is good. But regarding public expectations and sentiments, so where we are right now, maybe it would sound very, very paradoxically, but here I'm going to quote the survey, some data of the survey did by the very hardcore pro-Fidesz think tank during October 2025. So this is I think the good side of the Hungarian electoral campaign when Ukraine was dragged into that campaign. So we have some data actually from that campaign. So as of October 2025, the general support of Ukraine accession into the EU, within the EU, according to the data of the hardcore pro-Fidesz or Fidesz actually think tank, so it was 43% for merit base or along with the typical procedures accession, so 43, and 18 for in favor of the fast track accession. So it means 61, yeah, for Ukraine accession against 32, which is interesting. So it was the survey presented within the campaign when Ukraine was portrayed as a danger, the country which never should join the EU, paradoxically. And if we check our countries, actually, I mean, Slovakia, Hungary, Poland, Romania, yeah, paradoxically, Hungary has not the lowest actually level of the support, but very close to Slovak actually picture, Poland a bit better, Romania better, yes, but Slovakia and Hungary is very, very close to. So, for example, in Slovakia, against Ukraine accession to the EU membership, 42, in Hungary, 43. Yes, but in Slovakia, more people for fast track of accession. So it probably Bratislava, yeah, very close to Vienna. Why I'm naming this data? So, and this is my question to each of you. Please imagine yourself as not just a key negotiator, but even a key owner, a boss, a big boss of the negotiation process of Ukraine accession to the EU in this bilateral level with your country. But first, imagine yourself as a key boss and negotiator, the owner of the process and the agenda of Ukrainian side. So Ábel, let's start from you. You are the key negotiator and big boss, owner of the process and an agenda from Ukrainian side to negotiate, to manage everything with Slovakia at the bilateral level. What would be the agenda and the technique?
Am I from the Ukrainian side?
Yes. Right now, yes.
I took the wrong chair, man. This is like to start all these rounds. It's hell. I mean, I want to go back to...
You know, we sorry to interrupt you. We need to make Slovaks happy, you know?
Fantastic. I'm traditionally very good at making Slovaks happy, but so I want to go back to the thought that you started with, which is bilateral versus the bilateral trap, and I would certainly focus on bilateral issues first, not to get trapped in those, but just to get those up the table. There is so much to discuss. Actually, there is vivid bilateral interaction in between Slovakia and Ukraine. There has been a lot of momentum behind the intergovernmental meetings. I think it's also fair to say that not all of the momentum has been converted into actual, results, and that is concerning. So I would definitely try to unclutter the bilateral channels, talk about institution building, talk about mutual bilateral Ukrainian-Slovak institutions that have been in the making for decades and just never really manifested, right? Another thing I would really want to talk about, and this is like a Podkarpatia, Zakarpatia issue, is the Košice-Prešov-Užhorod cluster. And I think Balázs mentioned it in the previous panel, but others talked about that as well, that you have to just, create those hubs that connect the countries in their physical sense, right? Make the highways happen, make the infrastructure happen. Railway is a bit better off, but still, that kind of connectivity, get that out of the picture. Also, I mean, and this is my specialty, focus on minority issues. And now probably minority issues, national minorities are not going to be like a veto issue for either of the countries. But if you look at all the neighbors from the West, they all have their own minority groups in Ukraine, and not all of them are really happy. So why not preemptively think about policy issues that can, just defang the whole minority thing before just going to formal accession procedure. So what I actually wanted to say is that try to diffuse the problems before you go to the formal procedures, so that they won't you won't get stuck in those during the formal procedure. That's the first of 2 points I'm going to make. The second point is, yeah, this is controversial, isn't it? I mean, but you want provocation, right? I'll provoke you. So sometimes, and this was the same with our countries, many of us sitting here, if you look at the accession talks in a way that some guy is trying to make you change something in your country, and then you're trying to defend the way you do things at home. But this is not the only legit way to look at it. Actually, you can fortify and strengthen the momentum for internal political change by making the goals of your internal policy a part of the accession procedure, right? If you want to strengthen, I don't know, minority rights, if you want to strengthen economic reform, then bring it to the table. Don't let the EU side bring it, you bring it, and just fortify the reforms that you want to make. Ukraine is a country in huge change, but hopefully the war will end relatively soon, and at that point the momentum behind internal change will very quickly evaporate. So make sure that you make your political agenda part of the process as well, which might be controversial, but I think that if you make me the chief negotiator, that's what I would tell the prime minister, the president. That's the way I would want to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice position, being a Ukrainian negotiator. Csilla, I wanna. No, not yet. Yeah. But yes.
Yeah, I would consider, but I'm not taking it just yet.
Yeah, we had an experience to invite foreigners as experts, but it was pre-war reality. I don't know how it could be in this reality. Csilla, you are the next in this question. Oana, if you could check the earphone, it works or not, because we will switch to Ukrainian. Works. Yes? No. Yeah.
So here are the question for you, Csilla. Just imagine that you are the key negotiator on the Ukrainian side. On the Ukrainian side, right? But you have to have the negotiations process with Hungary. And imagine that you're not just following the guidance and directives, but you compile them. You compile the agenda. You need to go to Budapest in order to outline, well, not the negotiations stance, because we don't have it as such, but the points for negotiations with the new Hungarian authorities. Just imagine that Ukraine is ready to sign the agreement with the EU by the end of 2027, and you have to state it somehow and to agree on that. What would you put into that agenda as the key negotiator on the Ukrainian side? How would you act? What would you do? Well, maybe I'm in the right chair. I've taken the right chair because I'm an expert, and as an expert, I'm supposed to tell what politicians do in the wrong way. And I'm supposed to act as a politician now and to tell what the right way out should be. And I will start with saying that the stumbling block for Hungary and Ukraine in their bilateral relations is primarily the issue of Hungarian minority in the Carpathia region. The issue of minorities after the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine was transformed into the area of security issues and considerations. We can see it. We can see it from the EU as well. And the treatment of minorities is rather ambiguous. I can give you a couple of examples. The first one is Nagorno-Karabakh. It was fully destroyed, and the national minorities were fully displaced, but the European Union was not very much disappointed about that, because it was more important for them that the borders are there and that there are no frozen conflicts. So they do not actually care about the Nagorno-Karabakh situation. But another treatment of minorities is as follows. Let's put it under the carpet and let's not work with this issue. I think that this is the issue where there is plenty of room for maneuvering and manipulation because um, well, the things related to availability of food and bread, this is something that we can see. It's either there in the shop or not. If there is a lights and electricity, we can see that it's there or it's not. But whether the minorities have rights or not, this is the thing that needs to be contemplated over. And I can share a secret with you because the government of there is no government of Orban. There is no Orban as the prime minister now, but this does not mean that there will be nobody who will focus on this issue because of minorities, because there are a lot of people who have been hidden, who have been in the gray area, and now they are trying to just find an issue where they criticize the treatment of national minorities in Ukraine. So this is something that they would use in order to impede the whole process if it goes in the wrong way with the process with the accession. This is the first thing I wanted to mention. And now the new Hungarian government is in the making. But Padre Magyar has already started having meetings with the representatives of Hungarian communities living abroad. And we were really interested in whom he would meet out of the Zakarpattia Hungarian community, because the head of the Society of Hungarians in Ukraine, who has been living for many years in Hungary, is a persona non grata in Ukraine, which means that the would-be prime minister would really make a mistake if he invited him as the representative of the Hungarian minority in Ukraine. That's why Peter Magyar invited the mayor of Barahovo. And, well, you will criticize me for this, but I will share this information with you because, it's always good to speak about positive examples, but we need to also voice the information about problematic issues. So the problem is that after that meeting with the mayor of Barahovo, Peter Magyar put on Facebook some information about the same 11 points that I will already mention today. I don't think that this is something that illustrates his final idea about working with Ukraine. I don't think that he really thinks that all those 11 items have to be introduced by Ukraine and only after that we may start discussing other things. Uh, but probably what he meant is that we need to do something about those 11 items, and there has been not enough attention paid to it. I think that this is not going to be an easy and quick process because first he will need to shape up the new ministry, and after 16 years of Orban's rule, I think not only the ministers and state secretaries need to be replaced, everybody, the clerks, the cleaning ladies in the ministries should be replaced, and this is going to be a tough thing to do, not quite a formidable task. But the mayor of Barahov on his Facebook page said that everything is fine with the Hungarian minority and they enjoy all their rights. But, if such statements are made, definitely no consensus is going to be reached because, one of the negotiators said one thing, made one statement, and the other side of the negotiations told quite the opposite. While I was presenting this information, I was trying how I could find my way out of this situation of being the chief negotiator in the Ukrainian side. So let me try. Let me imagine that I stay at home, I open my laptop, I read Ukrainian mass media, and I get across an interview with a person who is talking about Ukrainian-Hungarian relationship with a great and high level of professionalism, as if he has been dealing with this for 20 years. I've really been dealing with this issue for 20 years, and I can tell you that it cannot be the case that, tomorrow I wake up in the morning and I become a nuclear physicist. No, you have been really, you have to be engaged into that. for many years to become an expert. If I were in the place of that man, I would never try to become the negotiator. I mean, this head of the Hungarian community in Ukraine, he's persona non grata. And the fact that the government has changed does not change the overall situation. So, what will be your agenda for the negotiations? Because is it going to be the only the issue of national minorities that you will place on the agenda or not? Not only. Of course, we need to speak about national minorities, but I've just mentioned that we need great professionals, and the professionals should act as negotiators because politicians just sign agreements, but the negotiations should be conducted by professionals where they have open and transparent democratic talks, European style talks. And definitely, we need to take some great professionals. We do have them, but too few of them. I was really concerned about the establishment of the new commission. I've shared the information about this new commission with you before, and but you should think over what people you include into this composition, because if they are not experts, if they are laymen, nothing good and positive will happen, and you're not going to get to any agreement. If there is one side that does not really understands what they are talking about, nothing will happen. No positive outcome will be there. So I hope that you understand what I mean by that. Fine, Csilla, thank you. So sometimes this information was rather mysterious, but that gives room for interpretation.
So, Oana, my question, actually the same to you as well. Imagine, no. You passed already. I mean, Romania and Hungary, you managed, but it was tough. It was tough. I remember. The same with Slovakia. Actually, it was tough. Yeah, but imagine yourself as a key negotiator and key owner of the both process and agenda from Ukrainian side to negotiate with Romania, with taking into consideration all this polarization, turbulences, etc., etc. Also, imagine yourself as you are also a key expert, Ukrainian expert on Romania. So what would be your offer from Ukraine to Romania?
So I would say I would have a very easy job, much easier than my colleagues, I'm afraid. There are no serious bilateral issues that could prevent Romania from supporting Ukraine's accession. There are some which are technical, such as we would be worried about the impact of Ukrainian farmers and farming produce on our market. But Romania has this sometimes even obsessive security approach, which says two things loud and clear when it comes to Ukraine and when it comes to any other neighbor, including even Turkey. One, this is security first. This is a vital interest. We vitally need to have Ukraine in. And number two, if if this is what it takes to get Ukraine in, we will make it work. We will sacrifice some of our national interests at the end of the day in favor of the higher interest of being able to achieve this. So we would be willing, I think, to make a lot of concessions to make that happen. I would say the only thing that somebody from the Ukrainian side should have in mind would be the issue of national minorities, like in the other countries, is a sensitive one, first and foremost, because Romania could still, at any point, have a populist government. So the way I would approach it from the Ukrainian side would be to try both to implement the necessary reforms, drive this internally in Ukraine, and try to coordinate the communication with the Romanian side, understanding that if my counterparts occasionally seem like they're not moving fast enough or smart enough. What they might be trying to do is just to make sure that they have something to sell back home to the radical electorate that doesn't like the idea of Ukraine being an EU member. So the option is, do you want to work with a Romanian government which is in favor of Ukraine's accession and might be moving a bit more slowly? Or do you want to risk a Romanian government that's going to be populist and completely opposed to Ukraine's accession, in which case both of us are screwed? So that's the only thing that I would keep in mind. What I would do would be to try and co-opt Romania as a partner with the other EU member states, because I think your officials have already been doing a very good job, and I think they should keep at it. And this is something that I guess a lot of EU leaders wouldn't want me to say. But the thing is, if you take the EU kind of setup for enlargement and you try to be a diligent child and tick all the boxes, this is not going to work in the case of Ukraine, because enlargement was not designed for a case like Ukraine. And what your president and the others have been doing, and I think they should keep doing, is change the game. I would negotiate with the EU not to meet the criteria, but to change the criteria. Not in the obstructive way. Don't get me wrong, this is not, I still remember, because I'm old enough, Mikhail Saakashvili in 2008 NATO summit in Bucharest, which refused Georgia and Ukraine the map for NATO accession. And Mikhail Saakashvili, the night before, almost threw a fit in a closed-door session. And one of the other officials there warned him and said, don't come ever to the EU or NATO and say, if you don't love me, I will commit suicide. So don't come and say, if you don't take us in, all hell will break loose. This is going to be the end of Georgia, the end of peace in our region. Even though, unfortunately, he was right. In hindsight, we now know this is exactly what happened. But nobody wanted to hear it then, because the EU wants to hear how you will contribute and make life easier. They don't want to hear how you can make their life worse unless they give in to some form of blackmail. But the way I would change the game would be to say, we understand this is tough. We understand that this is complicated for both of us. It can even be unpleasant. Let's work on this together. We don't think this is a fit for the Ukrainian situation. This is our proposal, keeping in mind what we understand that the EU needs as well. This is how we propose to move this together. Now let's negotiate it. And I think Romania can be an ally in this, precisely because it recognizes that Ukraine is fundamentally European, that for security reasons, which keep the momentum, Ukraine needs to be there. And so we are part of the Friends of QMV, so qualified majority voting. We understand that the EU needs to change its rules to avoid this bilateralization. So I would say anyone negotiating from the Ukrainian side should come and say, well, how about we advance our bilateral relationship by doing this together, getting your experience, getting your help to go to Brussels and speak a better language together.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mariana, let's make this Romanian track completed, yeah? And could you also, if you could challenge, please do. If you could add, please do. But also, could you elaborate how Moldovan accession together with Ukraine could be our, let's say, instrument, Ukrainian instrument, maybe part of the agenda in our talks with Bucharest?
Actually, it should be the answer on the first question, because this is the case when concrete date was promised, and obvious frustration arises right now this time because of unrealistic expectation about 2028. This is like a remark. But regarding Moldova, Romania, and Ukraine, I prefer to speak in the context of triangle. And before full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, I would say Ukraine was in a trap of strategic partnership between Romania and the Republic of Moldova because of a lot was depend on Ukraine in Romania for Ukraine was depend on relation between Ukraine and Moldova and vice versa. Right now, military diplomacy, security are prevailing, all these issues, and it remain in the past. Regarding Romania, let me add that and not only about Romania, in many neighboring countries, fears and anti-Ukrainian skepticism, it is rarely only about Ukraine. It is emotionally driven triggers about losing control, about economical recalibration, about social instability, about internal problems, and being Ukrainian, being inside of the team of negotiators from the Ukrainian part. I would say it is essential to understand that some rhetoric that we might not like it, some rhetoric that seems very tough for us, for Ukrainian society, sometimes can be not about Ukraine in the essence. Sometimes it is about internal fears provoked by populistic actions, populistic politicians, etc. But on the other hand, I fully agree here with Oana, and for Ukraine, it's not enough to export morality as the main narrative in the European integration. Moral issues is very important, but it's not enough. And I think neighboring countries would support developed regions, extended infrastructure, and Ukraine should think about how to transform this moral narrative that has been one of the important discourse of us into real opportunities, and to how to capitalize all these communications that we have exported years before into real opportunities, including for national minorities.
Okay, thank you very much. Stefan, right now it's your turn, but imagine yourself not as a Ukrainian negotiator, this big boss, but as a EU facilitator, moderator. For example, imagine yourself as a chief of DG Analyst, and you need to sort out all the bilateral things between Ukraine and Slovakia, Romania, Hungary, and okay, Poland. Let's left apart because it's a really tough thing. But let's try with these three. No option.
No,
no
I
option.
won't.
No option, and no suicide option.
Do you want
as
to
well.
kick me out?
Yeah, no resign, no suicide option, please. Only work.
Not at all, not at all. Never mind. No, well, I come from Ludwigshafen, which is the native city of Helmut Kohl too. And there is an excellent recipe to resolve things. That means bringing people together and invite them to their home, or let them invite you to their home or to their place where they feel cozy. And the first thing we have to do, because we are talking about many technical things which are very important, I assure you, but I don't understand anything of this. But what we have to deal with is the reluctancy of people against any kind of getting together. And so we have to address this. And it's not only addressing it, but it has always also to do with developing a shared narrative for a positive future, a shared one. Where do we want to go? And this would be my question to those who oppose to the accession of Ukraine. Where do you want to go? What is your goal? So they have to define, they have to think in a friendly environment. This is important because if you start to press, and we know this from any kind of rhetorical training, if somebody presses, the other one will press too. So just don't press. And just get around. It's like the Asian way of fighting. Use the impulse of your adversary, and maybe you get the person back on the right way. So it means getting into a comfortable zone and not necessarily, first of all, resolving things. Because the first thing we need, if we want to resolve things, is we need trust. And we need the feeling of reliability. And this was, at least in the ancient times of Helmut Kohl and of Adenauer, and that's why I'm here, was building trust in a slow manner, in a not forced manner. Now there is some time missing. And the other part is what I would try to foster is that people meet. Because if they meet, prejudices will fall. This is a very important thing, and it's not thinking in islands of people, but it's thinking of communities of people. And perhaps the other part is trying to give inviting signals to even those who are against you or the position understanding. Because all the emotions which are in the room, you can have arguments against them. But usually, if you have an argument against an emotion, did you ever try it? Somebody is married here, so usually it doesn't work. You have to address the emotions of the people, and it's not saying, "Oh, you're feeling wrong," because people are feeling. So the next point would be perhaps as a facilitator of European Union, trying to get some kind of mind map of concerns. And trying to say which are serious ones, which are perhaps for economic reasons, and they're not so serious, but let's talk about them. And it's important as well to talk about history. So I would like to be this chief negotiator, to be a German, but a German with an extra chip in the brain, which is an historical chip. We Germans have a slight lack. Our historical thinking usually goes maximum till 1914, because there were 3 traumatic situations, and Germany did not exist before 1871, more or less, as a country. So we're a bit stupid in negotiating in Europe, because your thinking is much deeper. We learned it's 1,000 years of Ukraine. So, well, when somebody in Germany talks about 1,000 years, it's difficult. So there would be a mixed team as well, getting some historic knowledge in this. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have a plan. We have a plan right now. So let's do not vice versa or upside down, but let's do the same round pretty quickly in a way that right now you are negotiators from your own country, but you don't want to block something within the Ukraine's accession to the EU using this topic, but you want to sell something. So positive bilateralization, what it should be. Ábel, let's go.
So I think when we were coming to the stage with Mariana, we were the first to take the seats. I was like, let me hide here in the corner. But that was just not a very good tactic from my side. Not a good one. So I will latch on to what Stefan said, because actually the first word I chalked down was trust, right? And this has so when people talk about trust, it seems like, you're just talking through the clouds and it's not important. That is the important thing here. That is the number one thing. You have to build deep trust in that what you tell your partner They can rely on you, and you can also rely on your partner, like making good for the for what they say. And that has not been the strongest side of bilateral negotiations between Ukraine and its neighboring countries. I'm not pointing fingers at either side. It just has been not very great, despite the fact that I think the issues between these countries, and with some exceptions, could be easily negotiated. The two sides just don't believe that the other one really wants to do it. So that has to go. That has to go very, very quickly. Minority policy is just a very good example of that. Who believes Hungary and Ukraine want to fix the minority policy issues wanted before, yesterday or whatever? The second point I would be very keen to emphasize in my strategy as a negotiator, if you want me to do that, is equal footing and equal partnership. Don't blackmail me. Also, I will try to not blackmail you either. I mean, the EU-Ukraine and Ukraine bilateral negotiations are starting to take blackmaily tones on both sides. I don't like that as a person, and I also don't like it as a country. And I don't like it as the EU, and of course I wouldn't like it as Ukraine. Don't tell me that unless you do this, then, not just the Saakashvili example, but any other examples. If you feel a position of power from the EU side, Slovakia side, Ukraine side, don't overpush it. Then to say, yeah, without me, you wouldn't be able to, exist. That's not something that I like to do. And also it's like the worst way of negotiating. It's not negotiating at all. To mention like a very precise issue also, something that will be here for a long time is migration between Ukraine and the neighboring countries, very heavily connected to the issue of asylum seekers, current ones, their perspective return to Ukraine. That's a very sensitive issue, right? Because you want everyone who can return and wants to return. At the same time, you're also happy to have anyone who wants to stay. You want to build structures that makes these people again into bridges between the countries. But this is something that needs to be talked about and also has security implications, really heavy security implications. I mean, some European countries have been through war situations, including the former Yugoslav countries, and we saw that there is a spillover effect to the neighboring countries that has to be addressed. So it's not something that is, easy to talk about or even seems to be fair to talk about. I guarantee you that this is going to be something that all of the neighboring countries bring up. Okay, so how can you, promise that the war spillover effects will not ruin our countries? Which sounds very selfish. Has to be said. So I would focus on these topics, and I don't really think that with the current political situation in the neighboring countries from the West, because you said you don't want to block it, but I think nobody really wants to block it right now. So let's go there and do it.
Okay, great. Regarding Hungary, щодо Угорщини, Csilla.
Csilla, what about Hungary? Is it really the fact that nobody wants to block it? And what would Hungary like to sell or actually to get for itself? I would not say in exchange, but just regarding support of Ukraine's accession to the EU. It may be a minority issue or it may be something else. What is Hungary interested in? Now we have a new government, and this is not just a new government. Now there was voting. This was a revolutionary voting, and 80% voters cast their vote. This is a huge amount of people. That means that almost every person voted, and that was a response to the intimidation policy of the previous government. That means that we have compassion. That means that we are supporting Ukraine. And we see different approaches, what the government was doing and what the citizens were doing. The NGOs were even providing military support to the armed forces of Ukraine. So that's an important issue. and the opinion of those who were voting for the Orban party will change as well, because from the state-supported media, they were not watching the news, but it was pure propaganda, and it was pro-Russian narratives. And when you do not have the willingness or the opportunity to watch, for example, 3 different pieces of news, but you are just watching TV, state TV, particularly this is the case in small villages, in rural areas, and Fidesz had its own audience in such small and rural areas, and well, people were listening to this, and now these people are very much surprised that they are listening to something different. So the situation will change because this state-owned media will be reformatted and there will be news, they are not propaganda. Another point, we'll have to restructure not only the relationship between the countries, not only between Hungary and Ukraine, but we'll have to reformat the relationship between Hungary and the Hungarians abroad. It should not be feudal relationship. How they made it in Hungary. If you are not with us, you are our enemy. And the same was about people staying abroad. So these were feudal-like relationship forming for 16 years. So we have to change this relationship. And only after this, we can have a constructive talk between the countries. And I think we can achieve pragmatic approach on all the issues. Because currently, we shall have the political relationship which will be based on expert knowledge and not will be imposed by Russia and by Moscow. Thanks a lot.
But not to Ukraine, but to EU with the help of Ukraine, what it should be. Let's put aside Moldova's accession to the EU. What else? What is the core strategic interest of Romania within the Ukraine succession?
In the Black Sea region, over the past decades, 10 different wars started. I think that's a decent number to sell to the EU as something they don't want to happen again. So I would try to sell the crucial role of Ukraine in defending Europe, in defending the Black Sea, because that's my direct interest as a country. The crucial role of Ukraine in revamping the EU defense industry, in which Ukraine should be integrated from the very beginning. It's one of the reasons why it is already integrated in the SAFE funding, and that comes to show you how creative the EU can be when it actually feels the imperative of being so. That was not in any way part of the methodology for enlargement or anything. But we have come up with so many ways of including Ukraine, I think, recently, that this is slowly becoming the modus operandi. And I would try to sell this as Romania. I would try to sell, let's use this thing that's called staged accession, which basically says the moment you are ready in one sector as an aspiring country, you can already be part of EU funding, decision-making, to the extent that you don't get a vote yet in the European Council, but you're part of the whole process until then. And I would try to streamline Ukraine into this as much as possible, because it's important for it to be there. Ukraine's role as a connector between Asia and Europe, becoming more and more crucial these days that we see what's happening every time the Hormuz Strait or the Bab el-Mandeb or any other maritime route is closed or disturbed. The whole logistics universe developing around Ukraine's reconstruction, which means tremendous opportunity for the European economy. And Romania's first and foremost, because we are a direct neighboring country. All the potential for infrastructure connectivity, which again is in the EU's interest as well. I think I would also try to sell the fact that I am told that without the EU enlargement process necessarily advancing faster, the number of bilateral cooperation projects on a community level on the borders, the cross-border projects, has been proliferating like crazy between Romania and Ukraine. And this is a direct consequence of the fact that we feel that our fate belongs together. So I think this is a model that I would try to use to explain to the EU how, when you co-opt these countries into concrete projects together, this tends to bring the institutional setup with it, not necessarily the other way around. And I think, there would be so many more things because the role of Ukraine is crucial. But I think there is one thing that's missing in the whole conversation. And the one thing that's missing is, let's assume for a moment that you have a role to play too, because you do. And the thing is, while we are all here, let's say, doing our jobs, we negotiate on behalf of our countries with the EU, we negotiate with Ukraine, everything fine. And obviously we will have disagreements at every step of the way. A negotiation is about reaching consensus starting from two different negotiating positions. And to go back to the marriage metaphor, let's say we have this kind of struggling marriage. We're trying to make it work. It's difficult. And you are Russia. You are the potential lover just around the corner, who is kind of stalking this struggling relationship that's, this couple that's trying to make it work. And you take notes on everything that doesn't work, on every point of disagreement and moment that we want to file for divorce because we are sick and tired of it. And you come and say, honey, I am so sorry you're going through this. I mean, this guy is a jerk. He's not treating you like he should. You deserve so much better. Come here, come. I think he's in for your money. Seriously. This is not what keeps a couple together. This is real love between you and me. So I think what we're missing from this picture is we imagine this process happening between Ukraine and our countries and the EU and so on. There is one other player, and that is Russia. All along, Russia will be stalking and making sure every opportunity for disunity will be taken to make sure that we get to divorce. So I think the important thing to keep in mind is whenever we do these things, let's make sure this is a negotiation, not a fight. We are all along, even when we disagree, Ukraine and the EU on the same side, and on the other side there's Russia. Let's make sure we never cross to the other side, making the mistake to believe that we are in some sort of conflict. We're not. Conflict is what Russia has caused here. Ukraine and the EU can be a very tough negotiation, but it's a process meant to make it work.
Great. It's a nightmare, of course, to be from the Russian position. But in that case, I would prefer suicide, and then it will be very, very, very easy thing. Yes, unfortunately, we should be ready for. Yes, yeah. But Mariana and Stefan, please, could you also give us something we could sell to everybody within the Ukraine's accession to the EU taking into consideration very, very Russian, malign, at least, and abused position, and this hybrid, yeah, stick and carrot position, yeah, even we understand that there is no way back after the full-scale invasion, at least, but still Russia will try. So, Mariana, you?
Well, I know there are some thoughts included in this room that topic of reconstruction is pretty untimely, but from the point of these strategies that you give me about carrots, I believe it could work. And all these efforts to create around these initiatives, some forums, some, I don't know, summits, some platforms that bring a lot of brilliant and important people to discuss all this stuff, and not only reconstruction related. This is that way that can help to sell also something else alongside the discussion on the essence of reconstruction. So I believe this economical related way to ensure partners that reforms can be implemented, that a lot of initiatives can be promoted, that new collaborations can be built. This is good consolidated narrative, good realistic consolidated economical full of interest direction that can bring together a lot of politicians, people, and whoever you need, and build trust, including, and to discuss important practical steps how to move forward. But I would, you actually, your first question was about vulnerabilities that can be manipulated by different actors, if I'm not mistaken. And we are all talking about minorities that can be in the center of tough negotiation, but I think there are more issues that hypothetically can be manipulated, but not necessary. But strategically thinking, I guess Ukraine needs to consider this. We are dependent on our neighbors in terms of export, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of logistic, and this is strategically for us, for war, for protection, for civil protection, for being country functional, actually. And this is a topic that can be, not necessarily will be, but potentially can be manipulated if some populistic forces come to power. And we need to be at least aware of this and ready for this scenario. And the third point, to conclude, we can't ignore these populistic movements that have already consolidated 40% of support, and you must to have some informal groups to know, to learn their fears, their emotions, to learn what they want, to learn what they are going to promote. You can't just ignore these trends in region and just say forget about them. These are far rights. We don't. I'm not, and I'm not talking about kind of partnership or something else, some kind of collaboration. I'm talking about learning what it actually is, because what you can read in media outlets, it's totally nonsense. It's ignoring. It's saying that if we ignore these risks, means it doesn't exist. It doesn't work like that. We actually need to learn what is it about, and what is it behind what they are promoting in the form of anti-Ukrainian skepticism. including.
Okay, great you for this very the third point, Stefan. So we know the huge interest, we see it, German interest in Ukraine military experience, in these know-hows, and even some jealous part is there from Rheinmetall. We heard kind of. Yeah. So what else? Or maybe this is the core what we could sell to the within the Ukraine accession to the EU as a very strong point?
Well, we are in a situation. Why do people oppose to the accession of Ukraine? And one part of it is people are in fear of losing control. A new member of which we do not know too near, because Ukraine is quite new, felt new for Germany. So people would say, "Oh, what do they do?" And what about our rights in defining the future of European Union? So there is something to address for us, because this feeling of losing control is something which is, we have it in Germany with AfD, used by it. We have Take Back Control, which was the motto of the Brits when they left European Union. And we have this with AUR, I guess, as well, and all these movements, and PiS, and whoever you might name. So we have to address this feeling of losing control, which is individually very different. And it comes from different sources. But there is one thing Ukraine can bring to us, and this is taking back control in the military, as you said, because there is no army so well trained and so sophisticated like the Ukrainian ones. So I would, as a German, I would oblige, so to make it a win situation, oblige Ukraine to train our armies. This is the first point. But there is another light which is coming from Ukraine in a way, because they are, and it's perhaps it sounds pathetic, but there is some part of European identity that I think it is felt within Ukraine, and this is something which creates cohesion within Ukraine, as far as I can perceive from outside. And this is a very positive thing. We were talking about resilience and why people stick together, and Ukrainians cannot hear anymore the word of resilience because you do not have any other chance. But there is a very strong point in it. So I would ask Ukraine to start a discussion about what it means to be European. We need a discussion about European identity. And the lack of a felt shared identity is stressed all the time when you were talking about migration. And one error I think we have committed up to now is we did not ever define what means integration into Europe. We made a strange try in Germany talking about German Leitkultur. And there is no such as German Leitkultur, because there can only be European Leitkultur. There is a shared history for many decades, centuries, and thousands of years. And what is it? And it's a culture of regulating conflicts, for example. It's a culture of what made Europe strong in the rest of the world. We were the best in fighting each other, and we stopped it. This is the secret of European Union. And to define that somebody is allowed to come to us, but without bringing their fighting about religion, nationality, or whatever to our countries, is one strong point. And to define that what we need as well is coming together. We need people get in touch with each other, because if not, they encapsulate, and then there is some process we don't want to have. So Ukraine can give even an intellectual and emotional impulse to European Union, and this is something I would like to negotiate and sell. You ask for selling as a win-win situation in the military, but as well in the sense of a European spirit.
Thank you very much. Very good, let's say, last point within this part of the discussion. Right now, let's switch to the audience. Questions, guys. Who wanna ask? Okay, no volunteers. I could. Oh, here's the hand. Please. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. And then you.
Thanks a lot for the discussion. So my question actually is an overarching question, both for the first and the second panel, because we've been talking about the interpretation of the future and about the objectives of Ukraine. So my question is, do you think that there is a risk that Ukraine will fall into the trap of unitary veto on the part of Hungary? I mean that even if technical requirements are performed, and how far the Trianon part in as regards the minorities is rooted in the history of Hungarian statehood, regardless of the government. And how far could the relationship between Ukraine and Hungary be based on that future?
Okay, thank you very much. We will take one more. Oh, and third one, yes. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you all for your role play thing. That was really enlightening. My question also concerns both the first panel and the second. Pretty much all the members spoke about this sovereignist, Eurosceptic, some would say populist track, whatever you may call it, yeah. And this is the thing that indeed happened in Europe, more or less contained for now. And concerning Ukraine, it was discussed as something yet to happen. But what can you assume or think that this may have already happened deep within Ukrainian society, especially concerning the last Cyprus EU summit that, according to the articles, didn't end so well concerning this bilateral thing. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more here, and then we will switch to speakers. Thomas, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Since the panel seems to agree that there is a need to kind of staged accession, something in between full accession and non-accession for the time being to keep Ukraine connected very strongly to the EU, I would like to raise two problems with this idea and encourage the panel to discuss it or to develop the concept further. Number one, I talk a lot to people from civil society in Ukraine. People involved in human rights, rule of law issues, and they all tell me, please don't do reverse accession, please don't do staged accession, otherwise our government will lose any incentive to keep on with the reforms. And there are reasons for that. So what would you recommend in that regard? Second, I like the metaphor about the marriage. If I would be the potential lover, Russia, I would come and create the narrative and sell it to the Ukrainians. Oh, you guys, look, you are just second-class Europeans. And look, the big country that defended Europe has no veto right. And Luxembourg and Malta have a veto right. And I'm very afraid that that would work, this narrative. So what would be your solution for that? Thank you.
Okay, great. So taking into consideration that we have no additional hour to answer this question, each of you 1 minute. Ábel, let's start to sum up and address.
Also to sum up, right?
Yeah. Please, but don't ignore questions.
Well, I usually only ignore yours, but Csilla will probably talk a bit more about the Hungarian issue. Let me just get into that one. And maybe you noticed that Péter Magyar, the new Hungarian Prime Minister's first communication towards Slovakia was no deeper communication unless the issue of the Beneš decrees, which disproportionately are about Hungarians in Slovakia, are fixed. So if if there is this kind of thinking that now this will be an easy track towards, Hungary and Ukraine being friends. That's not really the case, but it's very difficult to negotiate with someone who doesn't want an agreement. It's much easier to negotiate with someone who actually does want it, and this new government might want it. At the same time, this poses additional stress, I think, on the Hungarian side, because it's easy to look like the good guy if the other one is cosplaying the bad guy very, very effectively. I don't think the new Hungarian government will cosplay a bad guy, so now Ukraine has to get its act together and push for an agreement as well. And just a very short reflection towards the last question, I don't think it was a panel consensus that there should be like a semi-accession of Ukraine. I think that was actually quite far from some of what some of us have said. So I think it has to be like a regular process and go in there and just do it. I don't think the panel. Well, I'm not talking as for the panel, but I don't think that was what we were pushing for. We were saying let's do it correctly, let's take the time and let's go there. I completely agree. If this some kind of fake semi-accessionist thing, then it won't work out well. It will be just bad. So, and if you want me to do like 10 seconds of wrapping up, don't do it too slow. Also, don't do it too fast, and do it honestly, and don't forget to build the trust while you do it, because otherwise it will be extremely difficult.
Okay, great. Mariana, you next.
Let me address the question about Russian information campaigns, and let me start from the example.
1 minute.
Okay. If you remember that stage when common joint way of Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova toward the European integration was one of the priority, let's say. If I'm not mistaken, it was 2023 when Mr. Siarto came to Moldova and declared full support of Moldovan Euro integration, but not of Ukraine. And we have in our team very interesting discussions that it was done not because of huge love toward Moldovan people, but to push this topic of decoupling and to misuse this sentiment in Ukrainian society, how Ukraine will deal with this rising concerns that Hungarian pushed in Republic of Moldova, because for Ukraine in the result it could turn into very difficult problems with Romania, with the Republic of Moldova also. So that is how it works. In the result, it's not just to create some stories that you are the people of second or third sort, because we have overcome in modern Ukrainian history so many such FIMI campaigns coming from Russian Federation. And if you remember political campaign of ex-president of Ukraine, Mr. Yanukovych, it was based exactly on this plot that Ukraine is composed of three sorts of people, and there were posters throughout the whole countries, and that is just one example, just two small examples. So Russia doesn't create something new; it exploits existing fractures, and when it does something like this, it is not only about Ukraine. It will be in Romania simultaneously, it will be in Poland simultaneously, it will be in Hungary simultaneously, it will be in Brussels simultaneously, it will be networks promoting anti-Brussels sentiment. In the same time, it will be networks working in Ukraine, anti-Brussels, promoting anti-Brussels sentiment. It is entire architecture that exploit but not create fractures and fulfill with proper strategic narratives that serve Russian interests. So
okay, thank you.
We all need to be ready for this, and it definitely will be the problem.
Okay, great. Stefan? 1 minute.
1 minute. No, I wanted to say
German,
Thomas,
1 minute.
Thomas Behringer pointed out something very important, because he said he told us two problems which had to be resolved, and which is what is necessary is we have to look and we have to address all the inner instabilities of the process and of our societies, because Russians do use them and they want to tear us apart. That's why they use social networks and all the stuff. And there was a word about minorities as well, and it's a very personal observation. Do we really need this? If I look at at Romanian electoral law, then it creates much more problems than solutions. And do we need really getting stuck on this nationalistic identities, or wouldn't it be much greater to accept us in our diversities? Because these frontiers of the nationalistic thinking of the last 200 years didn't take us anywhere, 300 years. So perhaps thinking about diversity. Thank you.
Oh, great. It's a nice pass to Csilla about minorities. And to sum up, 1 minute.
I'll be brief. I think that this sort of vetoing will not be the case. We won't have it in the European Union the way we used to have it from Hungary. And I would like to draw your attention to one thing which has not been mentioned today, because it's also about how Ukraine is supposed to join the EU. The point is that the EU has got most of problems with post-socialist countries. And Ukraine is not even a post-socialist, but a post-Soviet country. Plus, it's a large country, and the moment Ukraine exceeds the European Union, it will change the military balance and the power balance, actually. And Europeans are afraid of that. They are not talking about that, but they are kind of afraid and concerned about that. Thank you, Oana.
Yes. So in that 1 minute, I do hope there won't be any hijacking of the veto by Hungary. I hope the EU will develop instruments against bilateralization anyway. We still have the French and Dutch referenda at the end of the process, though, which might hold it hostage unless we figure out other ways of dealing with it. We also have to pay attention to the potential frustration in Ukraine at how the war will end. So depending on how the war ends, Ukraine might evolve its own populism and its own radical forces and so on and so forth. And this could seriously disturb the process. When it comes to staged accession and reforms, let me just tell you the following. So currently 5 countries are formally negotiating, including Turkey. They all need to close 33 chapters, so that's 165 in all. So far together, they have only closed 6 chapters. The last country to close the negotiation chapter was Montenegro in 2017. So for more than 6 years, for more than, 9 years, no single negotiation chapter has been closed. This is a period far longer than all of our countries that joined in the previous wave had to open and close all the negotiation chapters. So that tells you the pace at which the EU has been moving until now. We cannot have that with Ukraine. We don't have decades to wait. So I think we will have to fast track some aspects of enlargement while not fast-tracking others, and probably any form of funding will be very closely linked to rule of law. So maybe we won't have the same kind of conditionality that's going to prevent movement, but we will have for sure very strong conditionality for actually meaningfully integrating Ukraine into the single market and into anything that means funding.
Great. Thank you very much. For the very, very cherry at the top, I have 2 commentators, one Slovak, another Hungarian, but both from the Budapest. So Balázs, you first, then Ondras, you next, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I have a double identity at least. Thanks for the very interesting panel. Just really quickly, I think it's very hard to discuss the European integration because because we have to analyze the formal process. And there is the formal process, meaning Ukraine is a candidate country, and even there is a reverse accession plan is on the table, kind of confusing. You know, like as I mentioned before, like what exactly, how the EU is being transformed under the pressure of the war, it's also decisive. We essentially having a multi-speed Europe already, right? We having a forming defense alliance, I'm calling them the Northern Alliance, which Ukraine obviously belong much more than, for example, Central Europe, right? Exactly because of the connection. At the same time, there is around 5 million Ukrainians officially in EU countries, and most of them is Central Europe. You know, from Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, obviously a lot of them are in Germany as well, but I consider Germany also part of Central Europe. So there is a lot of difficulties how to make it happen, but I think now that the rapid integration, which, by the way, the rapid integration is also on the table, or was on the table because of the US proposal, peace proposal. Let's not forget, right? So it's a very complicated issue. I think we can forget there is going to be a quick, rapid, full integration. And exactly as Oana said, there is a partial, sectoral, various integration process which is already going. I already mentioned, I want to emphasize again, Ukraine westward shift is huge and it's going across the border. You know, like if I'm going to Košice or even Bratislava to any shopping mall, I will actually hear more Ukrainian and Russian, but obviously from Ukrainians. Then sometimes, okay, I have to cross the border to Uzhgorod to hear the same, but it's an integrated part of our life that we are hearing this and we encountering exactly, you know, this and this cross-border way of integration is a reality. And the third, so the EU is shifting, and you know, Ukraine kind of should be, at my kind recommendation, to fill the void, and the interconnectivity and the regions are the way to move forward, I would say, and particularly from Zakarpattia, since we are in Zakarpattia. Zakarpattia has a different story even, and I think what you're trying to do, Dmytro, here, like putting and filling the void, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, this needs to be strengthened, much more funding bring in, much more focus bring in, instead of just going, you know, and do the politicking around the EU integration, which is going to be bringing a lot of tensions and sub-movements, but essentially the essence is this, it's the cross-border regional cooperation, interconnectivity, which the infrastructural elements which needs to be strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you. Ondras.
Thank you. Dmytro, in the beginning you said that let's not talk about clusters and chapters. Let's talk about clusters and chapters. Oana said that the only way for Ukraine to actually make it is to change the rules. I brought you some numbers. How many anonymous decisions Ukraine needs to pass in order to actually become a member of the European Union? You have, I need to remember, it's so complex, one veto or unanimous decision on accession perspective, check mark. Another one on opening the negotiations in general, check mark. Then an individual decision on opening all the 6 clusters and individual decisions on opening all the 33 chapters and also closing the 33 chapters, and then 2 more decisions to actually complete the process. Dear colleagues, altogether, this is 75 unanimous decisions, meaning 75 veto opportunities for whoever wants to screw the process. Out of the 75, Ukraine completed 2. Meaning, in the present speed, it's just not going to happen. It's just too long. So Oana is fully right. Rules of the game need to be, if not changed, but let's say bended, modified a bit. And some changes actually happened already. Hungary kept vetoing the opening of the negotiating chapters. So what the European Union decided, in full cooperation with Ukraine, is to open the chapters unofficially. So negotiations can start without actually voting on opening the chapters. So there is a flexibility from the Commission side, and there was a flexibility also from the Council side. So it is possible to bend the rules. But passing the remaining 73 unanimous decisions, I mean, I'm not envy at all that you were supposed to say a date. When would Ukraine complete all that? It's a long, long time. So that's my first thing. And the second, Oana, I loved the metaphor about Russia being the third lover. So I'm officially asking your permission to use the metaphor because it's just beautiful, as sad as it is. Thank you.
Okay, great. Applauses, yes, to everyone, to speakers. Okay.
Andras, I will give you a good neighborly prize.
Okay, lovely.
Одне слово можна?
Треба вже
Слава
завершити.
Європі, слава
I would just like to say glory to Europe, glory to Ukraine, and glory to heroes.
So, thank you, speakers. Thank you, audience, commentators.